So, good morning or good night, depending on where you are in the world, and welcome to another album anniversary review of The Shield Dude on a Couch. I'm your host, Hector, and today I'm joined by JC Rock and Metal Reviews and Señorita Sabrosura. So, how are you tonight, guys?
Good, thanks.
Everything good.
Everything good. And we're here because we're going to talk about Green Day. Oh, let me show the album. Damn it, Dookie, that is turning 30 years old on February the 1st. So yeah, I have it obviously on vinyl. Oh, goddamn computer. And that's what we're here to talk about this album. So we're going to talk about obviously our first impressions when we listen to this. We're going to talk about favorite tracks, deep cuts, maybe some history of the album and the band. And at the end, we're going to say if it has stood the test of time 30 years later. So let's start with JC today. So JC, what was your first impressions when you listened to this back in the 90s?
Okay, so this came out early February. I bought it on cassette. I remember it was one of those cassettes I used to listen to all the time. It was like always in my car. I think I got it like later on because it's interesting because I noticed like they released the first single, Longview, in February, but then the next few singles like Basket Case and the other ones came out like a few months later. I was just looking at the release date. So I think I bought it like a couple months after, like when the second and third singles came out. But I used to listen to it all the time. And I think it's an important album because I think it's like brought back punk rock. But I think it also might have something to do with like Nirvana and, Kurt Cobain killing himself, like right after this is released, like a couple months later. And I think that kind of led to its popularity. But it's a great album. I used to listen to it all the time. I'm gonna be honest with you. I have a Green Day ranking coming up, and I probably won't put this at number one. I think it's a little overrated. I think there's some filler on it, but I'll talk about that later. But otherwise, I think it's a really like strong album that has some really great songs and great singles. So
Nice.
that's it. I'll talk more. Yeah.
Yeah. So what about you, Señorita? Obviously, you were a kindergarten when this came out, so you didn't listen to it.
No. Well, actually, I was in denial. I did when this came out first. I didn't want to listen to it. I was saying this is not punk. Stop selling this as punk. And I didn't want to listen. I was hating without listening, but there was one song I secretly love, and then 10 years later, uh I gave it a chance when the other album came out, American Idiot.
Idiot. Okay.
Yeah, and it's like, I like this, and then let me give this a chance, and then I started to appreciate this album a little more, and I like it. It has so much energy and a great sense of humor.
Yeah, so back when you started working at Hot Topic, it's like I refuse to listen to this.
No. That was when I was in middle school and high school. I didn't want to listen to this. I was listening to heavy stuff like Slayer, Cannibal Corpse, Cradle of Filth, and then if I listened to punk, it wasn't this, and it's like this is not punk. This is pop.
What's funny is that you don't listen to that music, that heavy music, that much now.
I still do, but I still do. I just don't buy vinyls about that, but I still do.
Yeah. So I actually did listen to this when it came out. I remember I think it was watching MTV. I don't know if it was 120 minutes or something like that. And the Longview song came out, the video came on, and the to-doom doom that bass line was such great.
Yeah.
And then I was listening to being a young kid, and I'm like, oh my God, he's talking about masturbation. And I was like, whoa. And Now it's like, yeah, he's talking about that. But back then, I was like, oh my God. And the album's called Dookie, which is like shit. So, yeah, yeah. And I love the album cover. I still do. I think this is a great album cover. Yes, you can look at it like that. But everyone see the album cover. Plus, it's in my shirt. And yeah, I remember listening to that, and also when I bought this, I also bought their previous albums, which were very good as well. If you haven't listened to them, you know Kerplunk, and
Yeah.
I think there's the other ones called Thousand Something. I think it's Slappy Hours or something like that. 39 Smooth, yeah, and Kerplunk, which were great. And this is their third album. Their first album with a major record label, and their first album being produced by Rock Cavallo, who obviously, if you saw my last video, he produced their last album, and most of their classic albums are produced by him. So yeah, I remember listening to that song, but I think, and I like that song, but I think a lot of people fell in love when they put out that Basket Case song and music video. It was huge. And they played Woodstock 94 and they threw mud and they just became like JC said, they made like punk relevant again. To me, back in the days, it was that Green Day album and Offspring Smash
I was
that
saying
did that for me,
yeah.
which that has an anniversary in April, so we gotta do Offspring Smash.
Definitely.
Because I love that record too. I did like when this channel started, I did one video for that, but it's better with more people. So yeah, those are my first impressions. I did listen to that in the 90s and I bought it on CD and now I have it on vinyl. So yeah, let's talk tracks, shall we? JC, what are your favorite tracks from this record?
Okay. Obviously the singles are awesome. I'll pick some other deeper cuts. I like track 2, Having a Blast. It's that one kind of reminded me of like Nirvana for some reason. Because Nirvana does have this grunge kind of punk sound, and I like that aspect of it. And the one thing about this album is that if you listen to it and you read the lyrics, like while you're listening to it, I think it's a lot like the album is a lot better. I think like the lyrics are really important to this album because they were talking about things that no one else was talking about back in the 90s. Just
Here are the lyrics.
yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, but these lyrics were, if you were a young guy, like, you know me, but if you remember me talking about the 22-year-old version of me, and yeah, I was kind of like the guy, almost like in the Longview song. But I guess I had a little more of a life, but I was kind of like that, and it was the lyrics were relatable. So going back to my songs, Having a Blast is a great one. I like Pulling Teeth. That's a pretty cool song. Like I never knew what it was about, but now last night I was listening to it and reading the lyrics, and it's about like the girlfriend who just like beats up his boyfriend and she knocks his teeth out. So it's kind of like way ahead of its time, like things that didn't get really talked about. Like this is like years before like the whole like Johnny Depp Amber Heard kind of thing. And I thought that was pretty cool. And
And
supposedly
she
it's a
did
true story.
Dookie.
What?
She did a Dookie on his
Oh,
pillow.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, so Pulling Teeth. I like She. I know that was a single, but it was one that wasn't as popular, but that's a great song. And then the other one, right after one, Coming Clean is pretty good. It's like I think like Billy Joe talking about like being bisexual or coming out of the closet or something like that. Now I think like the last kind of 4 songs, there's like 3 songs in the hidden track. Those were, I feel that they kind of like bring the album down a little bit. Like for me,
I'm
like
all
the
by
first,
myself.
yeah, I don't know, that's okay, but
It sounds like Elmo.
yeah. No, but I think like this is like a perfect album, like tracks like 1 through 10, and then last like 4 or 5 bring it down a little bit. But otherwise, I think this is like a near perfect like punk rock album. It's just everything great with a little filler, of course. So that's why I say it's a little overrated. But I still like it. I especially like it's really enjoyable like reading the lyrics. So
Yeah, it takes
that's
you
like I said.
into a very mature a mature space in time when you read those
Yeah.
lyrics as a 40-something, 50-year-old. But yeah.
Yeah.
So what about you, Mary? What are your favorite tracks? And don't say the
Oh,
whole record.
no, well, remember this is an album I discovered later.
Yes.
I really like Longview. I love that bass intro. And a fun fact, I read that the bassist, he wrote that when he one night when he was uh high on LSD.
Nice.
It's a pretty cool bass intro, and
Yeah,
he wrote
it's
it
very
high on.
memorable.
Yeah, it's very memorable. I really like She. I think it's one of my favorite from the album. I know it was a single, but it wasn't like the one of the most popular singles like Basket Case or the other one.
When I come around, yeah.
Yeah. I really like She because it's like a sensitive song, but without being soft. And I read the story. Right. He wrote, Billy wrote that to a girlfriend that she was very feminist and a very activist, and so that's why he says screaming at me until my ears bleed. Is that his way of telling her that he's there to listen to her?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other one I like, that was the single, Welcome to Paradise. But it's a song that I still hear, and it sounds like very fresh, very catchy, very energetic. Um, and I love the story, like the uh, early days of the band. The guitar was written by the drummer, and the drummer was written by Billy Joe. So they used to switch places to write songs, and that was like a re-record because it was a really good song. So they
And Welcome
record.
to Paradise was in Kerplunk too.
Yes,
They
Yeah.
did re-record it and did something different for that one.
yeah. This was is more clean, but it's very catchy. It's still a good song to listen now.
Yeah, it's a great song. Yeah. So yeah, so those are your picks for your
Yeah,
day. So I know it's 14 tracks, and you think, oh, it's a long album, but it's like 38 minutes. Uh,
Yeah.
I also like Burnout. I think Burnout is pretty cool. Chump, like you're just a chump. But I think you suck. It's kind of juvenile, but it's fun. I actually like the closing track FOD. Uh, you're just
Yeah.
yeah.
a FOD, but I was thinking to myself, what is a FOD? If, yeah, people comment, what is a font? Because to this day, I think I haven't looked that up what that means. The singles, obviously, Longview, I still think Longview is the best song out of the singles, even though Basket Case and When I Come Around were more huge because they had that more commercial appeal. But the bass line for Longview is great. And I think I like She as a because it's like you said, it's like more of the softer ballad, and yeah, Pulling Teeth is great as well. It's obviously a toxic type of relationship. So yeah, so let's yeah, those are the tracks. So now let's talk final 30 years later, how this has held up. JC?
Yeah, it definitely holds up very well. It was the kind of album I used to listen to it all the time. I listened to the cassette, it's a short album. I think I had it in my car, so it would always like just go on repeat and go back and forth. So I probably listened to it hundreds of times back in the 90s, but I kind of like forgot about it for years. And then I went back to it recently as they just put out an album Savior, so I was like preparing a ranking video. I listened to it again, and then last night I listened to it again, but just like taking notes of all the songs and everything. And I think it really does hold up because I think it kind of like depends on like when you heard it first. Like I guess people who are like my age, who were like in their early 20s when it came out, it's probably very relatable. Or maybe anyone from like who's between like 45 and 55 would probably really like relate to this. Yeah. if they listened to it back then, and at the same time, I think if there are younger kids listening to it now, it's probably still relatable. You know, a lot of these topics are things that just come up again, and then things that people deal with. So the lyrics are very personal. I think lyrically, it's probably like one of their maybe the best album, like as far as like lyrics. But like I said, my only complaint, I think some of the songs are a few filler songs for me, like Sassafras Roots. That was kind of forgettable. Eminent Sleepless, In the End, and FOD is kind of weird, even though it's kind of fun. But so it's not a perfect album, but there are some like probably some of their best songs ever. So I think if I did like a list of like the best Green Day songs of all time, I'd probably pick like 5 or 6 from this album, like being the top 10 or something like that. But otherwise, and as an album, it's great, but it just has like a little bit of fluff on it. But that's all I gotta say. Yeah.
Some Dookie at the end.
But yeah.
So, what about you, Mary? How this held up 30 years later?
Yeah, I think like JC said, it still holds up. And now thinking, I think yeah, it's more relatable to you guys because it's
You calling us old?
and no, but it's funny because he said 45 to 50 or whatever. I was listening to the album today and I'm making notes too. And my husband came home and he started singing and he knows all the songs. I think he was in high school
Yeah.
when the album came out and he had the cassette and he listened to it. And I look at him, he's like, I didn't know you knew all these songs. Like every song, even the deep cuts he was singing. So it's very catchy. It has like a lot of hooks. And I think it sounds fresh still.
Yeah. So to me, I think this is an album that is very nostalgic. So that's why your husband started singing, because it when I listen to this album,
Yeah, it brings so many memories.
it takes me back to high school. It takes me back to awkward years of not getting any.
Of masturbation.
I, I don't want to. There was some.
Not getting any action.
There was no action back in high school for me. I wasn't the stud I am now. I'm joking. People are like, oh my God. But yeah, no, it really takes me back to nostalgia. And it's a fun record. And after this, Green Day, I think there's two type of Green Day fans. There's the Dookie Green Day fans, and then there's the people who discovered them with American Idiot, and they're like, no, they're more serious and stuff. And yeah, I like American Idiot is a great album, but I grew up with that Dookie era, and it has that nostalgia. Yes, there may be a few tracks that I could say, yeah, it can be a little bit of filler, but I love FOD. And even that track at the end, like, I'm about myself. I remember back in the 90s, that was the thing, to find the hidden tracks. And I remember when I first got this on CD, I think I was listening with my cousin and we had it all, and the song ended and it kept going. And we're like, it keeps going. And my cousin looked at me and like, that means there's a hidden track. Because back in the day, if Nirvana had a hidden track, that was like the thing in the a lot of like albums in the 90s, if they kept going, there was a hidden track. And with Nirvana, you had Endless Nameless, which is awesome. So we kept waiting, and then we start listening to the dun, 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 dun. We're like, what? And then I think it's Trey, the drummer, talking about like I went to your house, dun, 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 and no one was there. And it's kind of like when I was listening to that today, I'm like this just sounds like Elmo. Like this is an Elmo song, and I don't know. I find it endearing. I find it funny. I find like I could play this song with my kids, and they would think it's a song for them. And it's like a tender way to end the album. But yeah, back in the day, like after waiting, and I think you had to wait like a minute, and you were like, "This is the hidden track," because usually the hidden track had to be like something very bombastic. But yeah, yeah, I think 30 years later, yeah, it has held up. Call me, I think it's one of my most nostalgic records from the 90s. And that's why
Yeah.
I wanted to buy a lot of albums on vinyl from the 90s that I love, and Dookie was one of them. So we wanna know from you people, 30 years later, how would you rate Dookie? Obviously, if you want to know JC's rating, you gotta watch his video, and you will see the Green Day album ratings. What are your favorite tracks from this? Your earliest memories, and yeah, just some stories relating to this album. So please subscribe to JC Rock and Metal Reviews. He's got like great content, album reviews. He's got many things going on in the channel, and the numbers are, you're like getting to the 2000s, almost 3,000 subscribers, right?
I'm close to like 2,400 now.
That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
So subscribe to him, and he also collaborates on this channel a lot. And Señorita Sabrosura, if you want to know about like rock in Spanish, her Sabrosura recommendations, and also she collaborates on this channel, and buy her art at sabrosura.art.
Yes.
Yes. So coming up next for the channel, so this weekend we have I did a video with Eggy for the 10th anniversary of the Hymn of the Satanist. That will be on Saturday. On Sunday we have Is It That Bad? Judas Priest Nostradamus. So that was a good episode. So watch that. And also I have some great interviews coming your way. So keep an eye out for that. And for this Friday, I'm going to review with Señorita Sabrosura the Smiles second album, Wall of Ice. That's going to be premiering on Friday. So until next time, people, remember, I was going to forget. And if you haven't, subscribe to my channel, please. And until next time, this is Hector, the Shield Dude on a couch. And I'll see you all right here on the couch. Thank you and goodbye.